I don't ever want to set my strength coach up or my boss or my coworker PT to be in a situation where they didn't expect something. And if my boss or someone else doesn't have that answer right away and it surprises them, it's just a direct reflection of me, right? And I feel bad about that stuff. So I try my hardest to over communicate everything. Sometimes way too much, but I think it's important. Just
That's great, yeah.
I don't think there's in this type of setting. I truly don't believe that there is too much communication. You know, these guys ultimately, like I said, we're trying to win a World Series. That's the organization's goal every single year, and so you know.
Welcome to K2 Dojo, presenting DOJO Cafe. At DOJO Cafe, I invite my friend, colleague, and the person that I feel close to, I respect, I admire, and I learn from and get inspired from. We're gonna actually have a chat over the coffee, and I wanna ask them their professional and life experience so that I can learn from them. At the same time, hopefully, the viewers, you can learn so much from them, and hopefully we can inspire and encourage you in so many different ways. And today I'm featuring Austin Daus. Austin was my student, physical therapist, a couple years ago, and within a couple years, Austin has grown so much professionally. Now he's working for the Seattle Mariners. Austin, would you mind telling us about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, K2, first off. But yeah, so I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I went to University of Arizona for my undergrad studies and got my degree in physiology. And I then went straight out of school over to Los Angeles and went to University of Southern California for their Doctor of Physical Therapy program. I then graduated in May of 2019 from there, and then as soon as I graduated, I actually relocated back here to Phoenix. I started, first job was just a smaller outpatient orthopedic kind of sports medicine type of clinic, and I was there just shy of a year before I was able to finally join back up with K2. And at the Spooner Sports Institute, where I worked there for just shy of 2 years, and then kind of fast forward to end of 2021, I applied for the Seattle Mariners position, thankfully and fortunately got the job, and now I've been working with the Seattle Mariners since January of 2022, so it's been fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, especially last year was kind of an interesting year to start with. They had to work out, but
Yeah.
it was a great experience, I believe.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. It was so much fun being around that type of environment. You hear stories about it and stuff, but you really don't understand it until you're actually there and getting to be in the nitty gritty and every day of it and stuff. So it was a good time.
Awesome. So Austin, so what part of your life did you gain the desire to eventually work for the professional sports organization?
Yeah. So I think my entire life I've played sports. I've kind of bounced around between a few. I predominantly played baseball growing up. And so that kind of fueled, I think, my passion, my desire for pursuing a career in baseball. That was kind of my first goal as soon as I started pursuing PT was that, or I want to be a PT for a professional baseball team. And so it's kind of been there since day one, but it's been exciting, yeah.
The first dream came true then.
Yeah, it's there. It's still got room for growth, so I'm excited to see what happens and where it goes.
Yeah, so many people want that starting point, but not many people can get it. Then now you got it.
Yeah.
So awesome,
Yeah.
So now let's rewind the time a little bit. So just thinking back when you were student physical therapist, what kind of preparation do you think was helping you to put in a better position to be a good candidate to work for that professional sports organization?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of life in general, but especially PT school is kind of what you make of it, you know. Everyone gets the same education, everyone gets the same information, but I think going through school, you have to be able to take that information and internalize it and harness it for yourself and figure out how it's gonna benefit you in your future and how it's gonna play into your corner. And so, I mean, I think for me, big thing going through PT school was obviously one is connections. It always is always about connections and how many people you know and who you know and stuff like that. But I think clinicals obviously are another big thing. And I think I maybe have a little different perspective on clinicals than some people might. I went into every clinical as like a blank slate. Like it didn't matter where it was or who was my clinical instructor, you or whoever it was. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm there to learn how you or the other clinical instructor does PT, right? And so if I come in with my thought process and my technique and my flow and stuff like that, it might not match up with you. And so I think a lot of times students might collide with that because they try to carry over stuff, which is good, like techniques, things like that. But I think it's important to also adopt a new philosophy. And even if it is for whatever it may be, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, which is what I was with you for. I think it's important to adopt a new philosophy every time you go on some of those clinicals, even if it is for a short period of time. And at the end of that time, if you hate it, you hate it and you can throw it out, you know, but maybe you like it, maybe you like all of it, maybe you like some of it, you know. And I feel like taking some of those bits and pieces from each of those clinicals, as well as your classwork, and kind of having that foundational knowledge to make you successful is then what's going to prepare you to be that successful PT coming out of school, right? Rather than kind of, well, I'm just going to bounce around from clinical and do this, and then just kind of, you know, drudge my way through school and do this exact same thing on all my clinicals. I don't know if that, to me, and this is my personal opinion, right? I just don't feel like it doesn't develop as well. I feel like I feel like I've noticed some of those people like at the end of PT school are still a little bit lost, right? And still maybe like, well, that's why maybe I should go to a residency and stuff like that. And I mean, I think residency is great and stuff, but you know, for me, I felt like that kind of mindset for me helped me set up a very good foundation for hitting the ground running as soon as I graduated. You know, obviously you were a big part of that. I think that's like one of my biggest pieces of advice for like PT students is to try to like take clinicals one at a time, you know, and truly try to take something from that in your CI every single time, because there's a reason they're taking you. There's a reason they want to teach you. And so you should be able to invest that same amount of effort and flexibility back into your clinical instructor. Because they ultimately do. They want to see you grow. They want to see you be successful one day, right? And so, again, it's kind of what you make it. And the other thing I think that I would suggest for PT students is try to develop a familiarity with like what you have to offer, right? I think on resumes, a lot of times we list our characteristics or attributes that we might have: teamwork, whatever, selflessness, you know, time-oriented, things like that. And I think a lot of times we go into interviews for clinicals or jobs, whatever it may be, and we always think that the person on the other side of the table wants to hear and see how much physical knowledge we have, right? But as you know, as I know now, like that's not always the case, right? And so a lot of times you get into that interview, I feel like a lot of times it's just trying to figure out who you are as a human being, right? You know, can you talk to a person? Can you conversate? You know, get to know the person, ask questions, that kind of thing. And then they might ask a question about PT or two or something like that. But at the end of the day, you know, I think if you're able to offer, you know, some sort of other attributes other than just being smart, you know, whether you're time-oriented, flexible, adaptable, those kinds of things, but then offer actual exact, like, examples, right? And show that person across the table from you, you know, why you feel like you have that and why you possess that trait and why you feel like that trait is now going to benefit the team when you get plugged in there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you said is actually what you have done. I witnessed that, at first hand. So great takeaway is even like for the student physical therapist or the therapist who are applying for a new job, I think many times that is not the place, like when we do internship or like having interview, it's not the point that we are proving something. Definitely you are capable, you're a good candidate to even have that opportunity. So just go in there with open mind, heart, so that always want to learn. Then let's see how much we can contribute together, then we can collaborate together. I think that kind of stuff, we really want to see in any work setting, especially we are working with clients, people, but also working as a team. We are working with people. So, once we have that kind of mentality, almost instantly, like we became kind of close, then became great teammates, then great thing happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I'd like to add, Austin showed up to a clinical rotation with open-minded, clean slate, which is amazing. Again, that is not the place for students to prove anything. Definitely, like you have done already quite a bit successful stuff. That's why you are stepping to that clinical rotation. And I believe best thing you can actually learn from the expert, from hopefully CI, is what made them expert. So that understanding, learning from their methodology, that is the best thing you can do. And if you can just apply whatever knowledge you had, just putting things together and deliver, you can do anytime. Even after you get the job, you can do that. But I think when you are with somebody you can learn from, expert, you can actually observe them, then trying to understand what their thought process, then bounce off some ideas, then solidify your understanding. That can be a great, thing. Then I think Austin, you did an amazing job over there. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I had a good mentor in CI in you. So.
Thank you. So what about just going back to your clinical internship in a sports setting? What was the biggest takeaway from that your clinical, internship as a student at that time?
Yeah. So I think obviously being with you at the Fischer Institute, we dealt with a lot of professional athletes, and they're more so than most other places I've been. They have the added component of strength and conditioning. I think that was a huge thing for me, is the communication between the different disciplines behind ultimately an athlete's success, right? And so I think that was like the biggest thing that I was able to take away and understand that, again, you're not stepping on anybody's toes, right? It's just, at the end of the day, everybody has the same goal, right? We want people to complete, and we want people to compete and be successful and do the thing they love at the highest capability and ability that they can, right? And so if we can be a small part of that, but then also add on strength and conditioning and maybe also nutrition or something like that, then why not we all work together, right? And I think that was a big thing, taking that kind of advice and then now going into the Seattle Mariners. That's helped me out a lot, because at the end of the day, like I said, everybody wants the same goal, right? We want the athletes to succeed, and now I'm with an organization. Now I want the organization to win a championship. Ultimate goal is win a World Series every year.
Okay, that's great. Austin, anything else you want to add to help the viewers that, as a student physical therapist, prepare for the future?
Yeah, I think again, I think this advice goes for anything, but specifically sports too, right? Is patience, right? Patience is so big with trying to get into professional sports. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I had these great clinical experiences, so I'm automatically already ready to be a part of a sports organization. And while that may be true, sports organizations don't always see it that way. And so there always needs to be an element of patience within yourself, because the right opportunity will come, no doubt about that. But it's just a matter of when. And then when that opportunity does come, you got to be a shark a little bit at that time, and you got to go for it as hard as you want, and if it's something you truly want to do, then hopefully you set yourself up with success to be ready to put yourself in the best possible position. So that would be the only other thing.
That's awesome. Okay, so now moving on to new grad era, so to speak. So Austin, after you graduated, then working as a physical therapist at a couple of different orthopedic settings, now actual real life can hit you. What challenges do you face that time and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I felt like for me, the biggest thing coming out of school was there's so much information out there, right? Especially nowadays. I don't want to get into the whole social media, like, you know, old timer kind of saying that kind of thing, but like, I mean, truly, like, there's just so much information on social media now, and so many people are trying to put information out there, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's right in the middle, you know? And so I feel like a lot of times what I found myself early on doing was maybe seeing some of that stuff on social media and then trying to implement it, and whether it was a manual technique or exercise or you know, progressions, whatever it may be. I felt like I was finding myself trying to plug and chug some of that stuff rather than kind of sticking to a basis that I had developed, you know, through clinicals and through school. I had that, but then I was also like, oh, well, maybe I should try this and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine for experimentation, but then it's just when you're doing something different every single day or with that patient, you know, something different every single week, you know, there's no true adaptation or change I felt like that was happening. So like, I don't exactly remember where I heard this at, but it was always like random practice equals or produces random results. And that's kind of what I felt like I was, those first 6 months out of school, I was like kind of just doing some random stuff and nothing was kind of sticking. And so I felt like I was getting a lot of random results, and it was kind of frustrating at that time. And then I finally realized, okay, let me just take a step back. Like, I don't need to do all the cool stuff. I don't need to do, you know, this new innovative stuff, and why it may look cool to a patient or look cool to me or look cool to social media, whatever it may be. I realized that I kind of was losing my philosophy and losing my foundation. You know, so I feel like that was probably the biggest challenge for me coming out of school.
That's great. Just like you said, nowadays information overloaded everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, like a flood. So, but yeah, definitely we get some temptation to try everything, because like that may be another kind of, you know, pieces that could help your clients too. But at the same time, you said a great thing. When you try so many things randomly, you get the random results, because kind of deviated from your own philosophy and some type of principles. So that it was so wise of you that stepping back and see things like, okay, things are not working as I thought, but those times definitely we needed. Then even like experienced physical therapists, maybe they're going through that phases too, you know, but the key is to be able to step back and see and reassess, self-reflect. That is not many times like I see on lots of people can do, not necessarily physical therapists, any type of professionals in general, you know, do that. So that was great for you to see that, then actually be able to assess it. Then sounds like you put some strategy and put in action.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think being able to alter and tweak your practice itself is super important, right? It's, you know, PT now is definitely not the same as it was 20 years ago, and so I think there's big importance behind being able to adapt and change and alter and evolve your treatment and your philosophy and stuff like that. But like you said, it's just like, well, let me try this one day with this person. Oh, I didn't get a good result that day. I'm going to switch it up, you know, and that's what I found myself, you know, rather than like to maybe thinking or researching or looking at something and then maybe talking to you as a mentor or talking to my coworker or whatever it may be, and then actually trying to stick with that type of whatever, whether it was manual or exercise or whatever. I didn't actually stick with it, you know, and that's where I felt like I was like really running into a rut. And so, you know, I think it's, like I said, like I think it's important to be able to try different things and stuff like that, but then it's got to have a consistency, and you have to have a good reason for it, you know. You know, so if you're just doing something because it looks cool, but it doesn't really have any basis behind what you're trying to achieve with your patient, then why am I even wasting my time with it, you know?
So true. That's good. And also, you mentioned a good thing, great things actually. when you tried new stuff, but at the same time you are able to step back. At the same time, you are feeling comfortable enough to ask questions to other people who has more experience or just bouncing off some ideas. I feel like that is happening less and less in this society and in this our profession as well. So, but I feel like going back to what you said in the past, you said putting the athlete in the center, clients in the center. When you think about patient first, sometimes those, you work so hard, that's why you have some pride. But sometimes too much pride becomes kind of ego. But having that clients at the center of your interest, I think you're able to become humble enough to seek for the help and stuff. Then, in the great ways, it's not shame to ask questions. But when you do that, you have created a great learning opportunity. Then just amazing first year or two, you learn so much because of that.
Right.
I just want to say.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's important. And luckily I had great mentors in you and Brett, and it's something that makes it easy, and when you have a mentor who's also just a friend, I think it makes it so much easier to come to someone and be vulnerable and ask a question and not feel like you're going to be judged for a dumb question or anything like that, which I never felt like most of the time. And it was good. No,
yeah.
I think it's super important to have those mentors and be able to have those those types of moments and be able to ask those questions.
Yeah. Then another great thing is that you didn't stay within just comfort zone, which is just physical therapy world. I've seen you you went out of your way to seek other advice or input from other professionals, such as strength coach. Like we have great strength coach, Chip Goodswitch. I've seen so many times you went to ask him so many questions, and you learned a lot from him. That is, as a physical therapist, we just don't need to stay within our profession. We need to collaborate. In order to do that, we have to seek out the help.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna create a mutual learning opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you, yeah.
Okay, so now, just looking back a year ago, this is the time you applied the job for the Seattle Mariners and went through the interviewing process, and actually you got the job. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So would you mind walking through the process for us? What is that?